2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this wonder twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as tomorrow's legends. And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, and the Maid of Mischief, Harley Quinn.
Harley?
I'm here, Flash.
You always are. Welcome, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 13, Land of the Lost. I am the Flash.
And I'm Harley Quinn.
Does it feel like, to you, we've had a week off or something, Harley?
No, not really.
No?
I mean, it's nice to be back on board the Waverider, but...
Yeah, I don't know, I guess just because there was no Arrow last week, and I don't know, it feels like we've been gone for longer than a week, but I guess we haven't.
Well, I mean, it didn't feel off to me because I came and joined you and Cammie over on Arrow Squad, so
yeah.
That was fun, and I got some podcasting in our quote-unquote off week. So.
Yeah, so I guess that's where the feeling's coming from. We actually didn't have a legend, but we were all still together.
Yeah, well, at least 3 of us were.
Yeah. Well, let's get to this fun episode because, man, it was. Anyway, our show is on a roll. It is totally on a roll. So, what is your rating and your feeling of this one?
I loved this episode. I gave it 9.5, Return of the Captains. Mm-hmm. I felt that I had to knock it down half a point because the beginning was really cheesy and really TV, like, tropey to me. And
really?
it just, yeah, and I'll explain a little bit as we kind of dig into the episode, but I don't know, just on the first watch, on the second watch, because I knew what was coming, I was anticipating it more, and I got like more into it. But on the first watch, I don't know, just everything, it just felt like forced and kind of flat, and then just the way that they were sent back through the time portal, I don't know, it just didn't quite do it for me on the first watch. But I mean, they completely pulled it together for me after after the crash landing. The whole episode really came together for me. And I know that I'm going to probably disappoint a lot of people in saying this, but I really thought that Rip's return was done really well, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was very emotional, and it was good.
See, and even though you're kind of Rip in the beginning, that still, I think, is one of your highest ratings ever.
I think this and last week, I both have rated 9.5.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And last week was my favorite episode of the season, and then this week happened. So,
did it usurp last week's episode for the top?
It did, and there is one defining moment, but we can get into that later. Why don't you tell me how you felt about this episode?
Well, I'm almost there with you. I did not find the beginning cheesy at all. It was just tense right off the bat for me. But I gave it a 9. Cheers for Gideon! Yay!
Yay!
Oh my God! Okay, are they listening to me or are they listening to me? They gave Gideon an avatar. Now, how cool was that to get to see her as a person and be part of the crew? I loved it. That's what I've been asking for since, my love for this character and what we hear from her. It was so cool to have her there. But like I was saying to you, I have one word for our show this season, and it's consistency. It was, again, another really solid episode. There was a couple little hiccups, which I gave it a 9, but nothing to complain loudly about. And yeah, I do agree. The way they brought Rip back was actually okay with me. It stirred a lot of emotion in the end. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we get to the end when he does fully come back. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Oh, it was good.
It was. Well, all right. Let's get into... there's one thing we have to do. We absolutely have to do. Our Patreon supporters have totally come through for us. So this week, we really want to dedicate this episode to two people, Sherman Rivers and David Sanders. Both of them have generously pledged $10 to our Patreon page, and we can't thank you enough for your support. It surprised me, and it blew me away, guys. You are really, really stepping in and helping us out, and we totally dedicate this week's episode to the two of you.
Yes, thank you.
And by the time this episode releases, there should be some new pictures on the Patreon page that I'm trying to post up. I basically took a bunch of pictures of the gear that I have invested in to help improve our show and everything. So I was going to post that and explain what each thing was. And then me and Harley just might have a little special something for you guys in there as well once we're done here. Yeah. We do have one other pledge supporter, but we're going to save that one for next week because that's also something very special. But that one will come next week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's so exciting. Thank you.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
Cool. So appreciate it, guys. All right, well, we had a poll again this week. I released the next, I don't know what you would call the next stage, poll number 3, and we turned to the bad boys this week. So, what do we have, Harley? Who came out on top as the hottest bad boy?
The hottest bad boy is Leonard Snart.
Wow, see, that actually surprised me a little bit. I did not think he would get the, I don't know how you put it, the physical attraction votes. I don't know, but I guess there's something.
He's a good-looking man.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Although, honestly, the runner-up was Hunter Zolomon, and I actually probably would tie if it came down to Wentworth Miller and Teddy Sears. They're both very good-looking men.
Okay, cool. See, I guess it just depends on everyone's taste. Me, I voted for Manu Bennett because, Slade Wilson. I just thought he had the whole gruff, strong thing. I don't know. But hey, whatever. That's cool. Snart wins. Poll number 2 was character. Which of the characters would you be able to handle being stranded with? And who won that one?
No surprise. Snart won that one again.
Oh, 2 for 2.
2 for 2.
And who was the runner-up to him on this one?
Heatwave.
Jeez, that's...
I feel like that's not surprising, though.
No, well, it's interesting because, I guess it's just the way Snart talks, eh? Like, that people just want him to swoon, or they want to swoon to his voice. I guess that's what it is.
He's very charismatic, I will say that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, all right, and poll number 3 was the actor, the person. Which human being would you like to get to know better because you were stranded with them? Who won this one?
John Barrowman, and this one was kind of, I think this one was kind of a landslide.
Oh, man. See, yeah. Me and Patty were talking, and she was going to pick him. I don't know if she did or not, but she thought, I don't know if I could put up with him for long periods of time because he's so off the wall crazy, right? So.
Yes, he is. And I kind of feel the same. I actually totally forgot to vote on the Facebook poll and all of these. And so kind of the funny thing is for the runner-up, we actually had a 4-way tie.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So the 4-way tie was between Neil McDonough, Manu Bennett, Wentworth Miller, and Dominic Purcell. And if I had voted, I would have broken the tie because I'd have voted for Wentworth Miller.
Right.
So he could technically be the official runner-up, technically.
He technically made it into the medal round of all 3 polls. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Well, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for voting on that. Next week, we'll have round 4, and I'm sure you've guessed by now by my line of poll making, it's probably going to be the bad girls next week.
Sounds fun.
So I'll have to see how many of those I can find. I don't think we have as many to choose from.
I don't think we do. Maybe we can pull from Arrow.
Well, I've been pulling from all 3 shows, so we'll see.
Oh, yeah, that's true, I guess. We are.
All right, well, let's get into our episode, Land of the Lost. This actual title had a bit of connection to some previous entertainment, I guess you could call it, didn't it?
Yeah, actually, I watched this as a kid. Apparently there's 3 different versions, but they remade a TV series for kids in the early 90s, which I actually used to watch. So when I heard the title of this week's episode, I automatically was like, oh, we're going to get dinosaurs. I knew exactly what was going to happen, which might be why the intro was a little bit much for me. So,
right.
I don't know.
Well, that's cool.
But yeah, so, I mean, I didn't know this. There is an original TV series. It was made for kind of adults. It was more of a survivalist type of feel. And that aired in the 70s from 74 to 77. And then they made it into a kids series in the early 90s, which is the one I watched. And then apparently Will Ferrell remade the movie into a movie in 2009. I didn't see it, but I'm sure it's probably pretty terrible.
If it's Will Ferrell, yeah. I
mean, oh, see, I like his comedy, but when he tries to do some of these other things, I'm not usually a huge fan. Although I do love Elf, but that doesn't count.
No. Well,
but
cool.
I mean, yeah, I mean, at least the kids series, the whole premise of the Land of the Lost show was a family basically gets sucked into a time portal and they get trapped in prehistoric times.
And there we have our connection.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, where are we going to start? What's our first topic we need to get into on this one?
Well, I say we start at the very beginning because it sort of goes chronologically, and then there's a kind of a clear split between some storylines before we get to the end. So I figured we should tackle the beginning with Evil Rip taking control to start with.
Wow.
Okay. Because that's the beginning. All right. Well, our legends, we know that they know who has the last piece of the spear, but nobody knows where he is. So now this bothered me. You're going to see a theme here. There's a couple of things I'm going to call out in the very beginning that bothered me. But we saw a previously on scene that I don't think actually aired during the show.
Which scene is that, though?
It's the scene between Amaya and Nate, and she says something to him about his grandfather, that he must have the final piece of the spear. And I'm really pretty sure that wasn't actually in the episode last week.
Not sure. We'd have to look back again, but yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, we know he has to be the last person because we know what's happened to everybody else. Mm-hmm. So by process of elimination, we've already figured this out. So we know we've got to find him. But
and I was actually expecting to see him in this episode, and he didn't show up at all.
I was too. I was expecting to see him at the end, but it wasn't him. No. So, I was very confused by that. Well, we'll talk about the ending scene in its proper place at the end. Yeah. All right. So did this bother you? Because it bothered me. We had the ending scene last week where Gideon says, "I'm here, Captain." But then at the beginning of this week, she's addressing him as Mr. Hunter. It was just really kind of inconsistent with how we ended last week, and it kind of bothered me. I don't know. Did you get that same feeling, or did I miss something maybe?
Well, sort of, because I think what you're getting at and where it bothered you, and I think could bother me too, is that it seems like there's a scene missing. They should have showed us Sarah putting in that safeguard in place or something, because I think that would have just tied the ending and the beginning together a little bit better. I mean, it answered the question right away, I suppose, because it left us hanging. We're wondering, oh my God, like he can take over Gideon just like that. And then the show starts off with her calling him Mr. Hunter, and there's this safeguard in place, and she's like, I'm not allowed to talk to you. Yeah. So, I didn't mind that. It answered that question right away, and the show just got to continue on from there. So I think it was just missing a scene to show us that, and that's the only thing that really bothered me about it.
Yeah, and I think that's what bothered me too, because I thought we were gonna right off the bat basically start where we ended, and we kind of did in a way, but to have that tense scene at the very end with like his evil smirk and I'm gonna take over the Waverider kind of line of thinking. And then it starts with him going, Gideon, I know you're there. Like, I know you can hear me. And then she's like, Mr. Hunter, I'm not supposed to be talking to you, kind of thing. And that, I don't know, it just kind of put me off a little bit. Yeah, it didn't connect at all.
Yeah.
Especially with that. Yeah, because that ending scene was so great. But anyway.
Well, it makes you wonder if that was a mistake in the writer's room or in the director, because they have a different director every episode. So, maybe he didn't see how the last one ended yet. And yeah.
Just pick some footage or something and stuck it in there.
But Rip does, even though it opens with that, he does come right back at her with an override command.
He does. I wrote this down. Because I was curious what he said, because I couldn't quite make out the middle word, but I turned on the closed captionings to pick it up. He said, Spaniel broad tricycle. 3
completely unrelated words.
Completely.
But yeah, so that allowed him to open the door, and basically I think it forced Gideon to obey his commands.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the override command. And then when he kind of finds what he wants, he says another, what did he call it? Was it the Spectrum Protocol?
Something, yeah.
I think that's what it was.
He wasn't out of his cell very long when he initiated the next one. And that was a self-destruct command. Holy crap! Like, things just got tense fast.
Yeah, it did.
And it got me to thinking right at that moment. I'm like, Sarah probably really should ask for a list of codes and commands from Gideon so that she knows.
Exactly. I was thinking that. I was like, he says these things all the time. There's always a little protocol we didn't know about that does this thing, or a series of just, like you said, unconnected words that is an override command. So, she needs to get a list or something.
Well, what I'm wondering along that line, too, is I think this is Rip's own special enhancements or program that he's done since being with Gideon for so long. I don't think it's a Time Master Waverider ship-wide thing. Like, I don't think all ships have the same command codes. I think it's something he individually put on there himself.
Yeah, probably. That makes sense. That makes more sense anyway.
Yeah. But even still, there still should be, I believe there is some codes that I think Sarah should get a hold of anyway. Yeah, I agree. She needs something in her arsenal. Yeah. But he basically goes and he gets the medallion. That's what he's after at first.
Well, I think that's what he is after the whole time, because he basically doesn't want them to be able to find Commander Steele, since only him and that medallion can actually find him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess they say he was headed towards the jump ship, so I assume he was leaving to rejoin the Legion of Doom. But then...
because he's destroying the Waverider and everybody on it.
Yeah, so he's going to escape and go back and join them with the medallion. Although I don't know why he would need it. Either way, whether he takes it or destroys it, although since he ends up destroying the medallion. But as long as they don't have it, I mean, that was the key thing, I think, there. It was kind of weird that he took it and then was going to leave. I was like, well, you should have probably just destroyed it in the first place and then tried to leave. But he ends up destroying it anyway.
Yeah, and that's just because part of the team stops him in the hallway, and he realizes he's got no way out, so better destroy it so nobody has it. And but talking about that, holy cow, he tosses it and spins and fires in one shot. Blam!
It was awesome.
Holy cow, he's a good mark.
Yeah.
That was cool. And of course, then right after that, though, I thought it was cool because, man, oh man, Mick comes running in full on lunging punch. That you felt that. That would knock anybody out. Holy cow.
Oh, I know. I mean, he was out for the count. He was out for a good while after Mick clocked him. So.
Yeah. Because, Mick's not a small guy, and he's strong, so that was a lot of momentum and weight behind that punch. I'm surprised he didn't break his face.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised a little bit more damage wasn't done, but, it's TV, so.
Totally. All right, so what happened after that?
Well, so all of these scenes are kind of interspliced together because now we have the self-destruct sequence that's been activated. Not yet again, not one of my favorite TV tropes, but it gets used a lot. Anyway, so he's trying to basically reboot the system so that he can take control of the ship from Gideon, who at the current moment is trying to kill them all.
Jax's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So he's kind of doing his best, trying to get everything rewired. And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, I've got to shut the whole thing down for like 4 seconds or whatever it is that he says.
Right.
And so, yeah, he shuts the whole thing down and then brings it back up just in time for them to crash land.
Again, this stuff was tense. I mean, this opening few minutes was very edge of your seat.
It was, yeah.
I mean, it was awesome. Like the crash landing itself was friggin' epic. Like I was sitting there on the edge of my seat and I was not blinking for that whole sequence. I had wide-eyed deer in headlights, like jaw open, kind of like this. I mean, that was amazing stuff. It wasn't cheaply done. It looked really good, and it was intense. We haven't had an opening like that in a while. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, we haven't. I mean, it was pretty tense from the get-go, which, given the ending of last week, you kind of expected you were going to jump right into something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was really good. I agree. It was well done. I thought it was really pretty funny that they ended up jumping back to exactly where Ray had previously been. And so, I mean, Gideon gives the reason that apparently she automatically jumps to the oldest location after she's rebooted, which I thought that was interesting. Mm-hmm. But an interesting little tidbit. So,
which was like 63 million years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think they call it the Cretaceous Period,
Cretaceous Period.
Yeah. During prehistoric times, there's dinosaurs running around, trying to eat people, trying to eat Ray, the usual.
Yeah. And it was, I think the only thing that was maybe fluky about it is they happen to land in roughly the same area that Ray was when he was there.
Yeah, so I guess, is that part of she automatically jumps to the exact location
That's what I was thinking. That's where I was writing it off as. She goes not only to the time period, but to the same spot too. So, which was good.
Yes. And then, of course, conveniently, they've lost a piece of the time drive, the time delineator. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they can't just leave. They've got to go find the piece of the ship. See, this is why I had trouble with the beginning. It was very TV tropey for me and borderline cheesy.
Yeah, but you know what? The way the ship was crashing, it's going to lose bits and parts, and that thing sticking out at there's this whole thing that people complain about tropes. I mean, if we didn't have tropes, we wouldn't have any movie or TV because every single episode of TV or a movie is built around them. I mean, just because a movie or TV show has used them over and over again and written them in their own way, they're a staple of what these things are about. Without them, we'd have nothing. So this whole trope thing, it kind of bugs me how people get so nitpicky about it. Because what are you going to do without that stuff? You can't. I don't know. Things would just happen so quick.
I don't know.
That'll have to be a whole different episode. I could just go on and on about that.
Well, we won't go on and on about that, but yeah.
I'm nitpicking you this time. That's my nitpick this week.
You're going to nitpick me?
Yeah. Enough with the trope complaining.
All right, I'm done. We're through pretty much at the beginning, so I don't have any more trope complaining to do.
All right. Well, so we then find out another little bit of info that just kind of came out of nowhere.
Right? How cool was this? Apparently, Mick just throws this out there that the Time Masters can literally get into people's heads. I mean, that's insane. So I guess that's what they did to him when he was Kronos. So when we would see those scenes, remember, because I always thought they were kind of weird, where he was sitting in the little chair and when they were trying to remake him into Kronos, and then they would have the creepy music and it would kind of flash and he would kind of look like he was struggling with something. I think that's what they were doing, is they were basically in his head playing around at that point.
Right.
So that was a nice callback and actually brought clarity to some scenes that I totally didn't completely understand from last season.
Well, so they're wrapping things up. They're still, little by little, they're bringing things full circle and giving us, answers to things we were wondering about. So it's awesome.
Yes, it's totally awesome.
But I did find it a little bit odd, though, that he just thought of it now, and Gideon kind of reminds him and helps him with it. I mean, why didn't she mention it before? She obviously knew about it.
Yeah, well, she knew about it, but I think she didn't want to say anything about it because of how dangerous it is. And not only is it dangerous to the people trying to do it, it's dangerous, obviously, to the subject.
Right.
And the subject is Rip. So
that's true. And I was also thinking that maybe because they hadn't caught Rip yet, she just hadn't thought to bring it up until they had him. And it makes sense to me, because that far in the future, they should have some crazy science that they could work with and mess with people's brains and all that kind of stuff, because they have that kind of stuff now. So it just makes sense. I didn't find it unbelievable or anything. It was just a little bit weird that it came up all of a sudden.
Yeah, as they do.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of use Mick and kind of throw something random out there. Oh, by the way, the Time Masters can do this.
Yeah.
So he's our link, I guess.
Right. All right. So what's next?
All right. So I didn't have a whole lot to say on the basically Battle of Gertrude storyline. Mm-hmm. There's like some cute points here and there that we can kind of chat about and wrap this up really quick before we kind of get into the main part of Sarah and Jax going into Rip's mind.
Right.
So, okay. So Ray, he is informing Nate and Amaya that apparently he's angered a lady dinosaur named Gertrude. And he ate one of her eggs when he was starving. And so, unfortunately, Gertrude bears a bit of a grudge.
Well, she picked up his scent and she knows what he smells like, and yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's who was chasing him when we saw him at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that was kind of fun to bring that full circle. Yeah. I did like that bit a lot.
Again, it's cool that they're tying back to some previous episodes like this. It's just really cool that every little story tidbit seems to be coming full circle, and I love it. The writers are just they're bang on this season. I just totally am appreciating what they're doing for us.
Oh, I am too. I think they're doing a fantastic job. Mm-hmm. But so there's a lot of flirting scenes and a lot of just dialogue back and forth with Nate and Amaya, but it wasn't really very substantial, so I didn't have too much to say about it other than, well, that happened.
Well, to me, it's the timing of their romance. They seem to pick really odd times to get frisky with each other, and I'm just like, come on, you guys, really? Like, they're hunting for this thing, this piece of the ship, and Ray's like, I'll be right back, I'll go check it out. And so they figure, we got a few moments, let's flirt. And and again, when they're in his little fort there, which smells like male T-Rex urine, you figure that's a great place to get frisky too. Why not? Like I just find the timing of it is a little bit weird, and it just makes me go, you guys, I can't see you being that. I mean, to be blunt, being that horny that it doesn't, anything goes, you don't care.
Oh my gosh, I know. I thought it was kind of really weird too. I don't know. I'm not fully understanding the continued need for this type of a romance to be going on, because while this episode, to me, it wasn't as distracting as it could have been, but there's definitely been other episodes where it was pretty distracting.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad this time, but still.
Yeah.
But then let's get to Ray's little Swiss Family Robinson tree fort that he built there. I mean, it was pretty cool that he did that, but I love when they go inside and there's these little dolls
I know
that he created of the team, and it just immediately made me think of that Tom Hanks movie, Wilson!
Oh, Castaway. I didn't even think of that. Oh, that's so funny.
Because he's alone and he had to create a friend and something to talk to. So but it was hilarious, especially the one that the little egg for Mick, the big egg head.
It was very appropriate. That's so funny.
Oh, and then there was a line in there that he said, which I thought you were going to use as one of your funny quotes, but I love when he's like, I'm going to go hunt for iguana. I'll be right back. Don't leave the urine perimeter.
See, that was a good one, but I liked some of the other ones just a little bit better. There were actually quite a lot of really funny moments throughout the episode. I had a hard time picking, but it was one of those times where I just started writing stuff down, and I was like, okay, I think this one's funnier, so I'm going to take this one off. Like, but I like this one more, so I'm going to take this one off. So. Right. Yeah. There's definitely going to be a lot of honorable mentions as we keep going through the episode.
That was definitely one of them for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was really pretty funny.
What I thought, though, was a little bit odd, too, is right after that scene when he comes back with the iguana, you see that Amaya is eating it. I kind of figured her for a vegetarian, seeing as how that she's very, she's very in tune with animals. I didn't think she'd be a meat eater at all.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I guess I was sort of like, I was watching the scene, but I wasn't really paying that much attention to thinking of, oh yeah, she's eating this, and knowing like how Ray, made the soup or whatever. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought she'd be a meat eater either.
No. Well, the one cool thing that we can talk about this sequence back in the Cretaceous period, though, is when they finally faced off with the T-Rex.
Ooh, yeah.
Ray and Nate were about to fight her, and Vixen actually runs in there and lets the T-Rex kind of roar and do her thing. And I guess that kind of answered a question for me, is how does she gain the power of the animals? What does she need to do? And that basically showed how she communes with them. And I guess the medallion absorbs the essence, or whatever you want to describe it as. And she was immediately able to call on that power and then commune with the T-Rex. And it was a really, really cool scene. Like the music and the feel of it, it was very, it was touching in a way of humans connecting with animals. And the effects for this episode were really, really well. I mean, the T-Rex looked great. The effects on Vixen's eyes were spectacular, whatever the contact she was wearing. I mean, it was a really, really neat scene.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely one of my favorite scenes. Hands down my favorite scene of this little storyline here. It was great. I love her eyes. That was really cool. I really enjoyed kind of seeing what they did with that. I thought the effects, the scene, everything, the way that she acted it. I mean, there were no words spoken, but it was incredibly well done. So
yeah,
I enjoyed that a lot.
And then that right there, what you just said, there was no words spoken at all, and yet it still had such a powerful feeling to that scene. So that just shows you how good it was. It was really well done.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we kind of skipped over this part a little bit, and I was just kind of, speaking of Amaya, I was just kind of thinking about it, like, because Ray, he's got kind of an ulterior motive. Like, he clearly sees what's going on between the two of them, but he's basically, at one point, he's honest with Nate and saying why he actually can't date Amaya. He can't, distract her from her destiny, because her descendants have a purpose. Like, her daughter, her granddaughter has to end up becoming Vixen that we meet in the future.
Right.
So,
yeah, I guess you're right. That was probably a pretty important part of this scene is when Ray, like you just said, when he has to explain to Nate, like, you can't be doing this, because if you screw up her existence and her destiny, you're going to screw up a lot of people's existences.
Yeah, exactly. So that I liked. I liked that he was being really kind of goofy and trying to interrupt them without them realizing what he was doing. But eventually he was just kind of blunt with Nate, and he's like, "You can't do this."
Well, it came to another scene, which here's another honorable mention, is once Amaya leaves to go get firewood, Ray kind of cinches a little closer to him, and then cinches right beside him, and Nate's like, so what, are we about to cuddle for warmth now? And Ray's like, you can't. And Nate's like, what? resist your charm or whatever he says. And that made me laugh too.
Yeah, that was a really good exchange. He's like, what? No. He's like, I dated someone on the ship. And he's like, you did? And then he starts talking about Vixen's granddaughter. And he's like, you dated her granddaughter? And he's like, no.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. What I liked about that whole scene is it gave a lot more depth to Vixen as a character.
It did.
And even though she wasn't in that scene, she wasn't even part of it. It's just listening to the way Ray described it to Nate, it really gave a lot of depth to her and sunk in kind of that she's pretty important. She's not just this tag-along that happened to join the team this season. So it was cool.
Yeah. I mean, he points out, he's like, we were all chosen because we don't matter, but she matters.
Yeah. Yeah, we have no destiny, but she does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So don't screw it up.
All right, so now we're back on the Waverider, and we're about to enter into Rip's mind, because we got Sarah and Jax. They volunteer to get those god-awful needles jammed into the back of their skull.
Yeah, it was just
Ouch.
Like the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
That I kept thinking the entire time. I was like, we are entering the Matrix. But it was cool. I liked that they did it that way because I think it was a very clear nod to the Matrix.
Yeah.
So,
well,
and I liked that. I love the Matrix. It's one of my favorite movies. So.
That first one was so amazing. Just the ideas that
and at the time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the show it's giving nods to all kinds of sci-fi and fun stuff. So that's cool. Yeah, that was a really neat thing. So basically, we realize when we get into Rip's subconscious that he's on the Waverider, but things aren't as they seem. Because we find out that Thawne twisted his consciousness and everything's backwards, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of answers that for us, because it's kind of like in a wonder. He's so angry and against our team right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, which I thought was it was kind of like the overall theme of this episode, because in reality, Rip is evil and the team is good, but in his head, he's the good guy and the team is evil, and that totally explains why he's against them so strongly.
Yeah, no, it made perfect sense. I mean, I think even Jax says at one point, well, no wonder he hates us. And, in real life, if this is what we're like in his subconscious, no wonder when he's awake, he can't stand us, kind of thing. So
Exactly.
I was like, that's a very good point. But it was just fascinating, the whole idea that you can be imprisoned by your own memories just by changing your perception of certain people.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty fascinating and very... Is ironic the right term? I mean, that his jailers are basically evil versions of the team he created.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ironic. I guess it like I said, it's like a yin yang. It's total opposites. So
yeah, exactly. So
which I just like that they explained it. We were wondering what the heck did Thawne do to him. Well, that answered that for us. So it's very cool.
Yeah, that's true. And kind of another nod to the title, just the literal meaning of the title, like Land of the Lost. I mean, he's kind of lost in his own head.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's kind of something I thought about. I mean, the real Rip is lost and imprisoned in his mind. So it's kind of
true. But we didn't see evil versions of all of our characters. I mean, we saw Sarah, we saw Ray, we saw Jax, and we saw Mick.
Yeah, well, we saw Firestorm, so I guess technically we saw... You have to think that technically Stein's in there somewhere, but... I
guess, and that's what I was saying, maybe...
We didn't even see him.
Yeah, we never saw him, so maybe he doesn't need him, who knows? I mean, it's in his mind, right?
Well, it's probably got him locked away if he's evil Jax, so...
And then I was thinking the reason we didn't see an evil Amaya or an evil Nate is because Rip doesn't know them. He's never met them.
Exactly.
So they wouldn't be in
And Snart is dead.
Yeah. Exactly. So
I love that evil Rory is Rory.
Yeah.
Like there's no difference. That cracked me up.
That actually brought us one of our quotes was
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that was pretty funny. Now this Sarah versus Sarah thing.
Okay, I thought it was cool. Apparently you disagree.
Well, I'm saving that for a little bit later. The fighting was cool. I'll explain what's bugging me about it. But yeah, the fight was actually cool when they were fighting each other. Because I can imagine how hard that was to even just edit that scene together. Because obviously she's playing both parts and has to, film the whole scene in one outfit and then film the whole scene again in the other outfit. And then the editor is just splicing it back and forth between her and her body double. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I enjoyed all of the fight scenes that took place in this episode because there was quite a lot. It was very kind of heavy on the fight scenes. So for some of this, I mean, there's not really too much to discuss, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when they met in the hallway and it was, I think it was Mick and Jax, and Sarah's like, I'll take these two. You guys go move on. And I thought, how is she going to take them both on? And she actually did okay at first. I mean, she's the best hand-to-hand fighter, but I was surprised how good Evil Ray was. I mean, he kind of took her down and then grabs her bracelet, that safety bracelet, to pull him out of the Matrix. And he just crushes it. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool to see him get to play a darker version of himself, too.
Yeah, he was really creepy. Like, kudos to Brandon Routh. That was awesome.
Yeah, totally.
I've never really seen him play... Have I seen him play a character like that? Was he on Chuck? I think he was evil on Chuck.
I know he was on there, but I didn't watch it, so I don't know what his character was like.
I think he was evil at first, and then he kind of came around. I don't know. He was one of those characters that kind of went like back and forth. But I guess that's probably the closest I've seen to him playing an evil character. But it was creepy and cool, and I liked it.
Yeah, no, he did good. He did good. Well, then, once they capture Sarah, she gets thrown in a cell of her own, and we find Rip is in there as well. The real version of Rip.
Yeah, literally imprisoned in his own head. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, like what... I don't know, how would you put it? Like this, he was pretty terrified. He was cowering in the corner there. So is this because the evil version of him was in reality? So was his conscious kind of split in half, and this was what was left? This was the cowering... cowardly, fearful, wimpy version of him, and that's why he's in the corner. Don't touch me, leave me alone. And
I think so. I mean, I think this was supposed to be Rip in his former life, but because he's been imprisoned by the evil versions of his team, he's basically been completely terrified and terrorized by these people. So he's very rightly afraid of them. And I mean, if you're thinking about it, you've got this piece of you kind of, it's in Rip's head. So he's got that piece of him completely locked away and is pushing it as far back and as far down as he possibly can, kind of trying to forget that part of him and who he was almost. It's kind of how I was taking that. And so, I mean, kind of like in almost a literal sense where he's that part of him has been imprisoned in his own head. And I think Gideon makes mention of the fact that he's slowly forgetting who he was. And, if it keeps going, he's never going to come back and he'll never, you'll never be able to get him back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that was really cool. So basically Sarah comes in and tries to remind him, and I loved this editing choice where as you see her kind of talking and trying to remind him of who he is, he sees snippets of himself and some of the characters from season 1. Like the first one is him in scenes with Sarah, and then you see it keeps going on throughout the episode. And so as his memories start to come back, you can kind of see him, I remember how this happened, and that this is my real memory of Sarah. And then I remember how this happened with Jax, and these are my real memories with Jax, kind of thing. And so I loved that. And the way that they edited it, I thought it was very well done. Yeah.
Well, and what did they call it? They called it cognitive intrusion. So the fact that she's in his head intruding on his mind and his memories, that's why it's starting to jar all this stuff loose for him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's true. So as he's kind of interacting, because it happens as he interacts with Sarah and with Jax, and maybe a little bit with Gideon when she's trying to remind him who he is, kind of thing. He's like basically remembering himself at one point, which is cool.
That's true.
Yeah. So, well, should we talk about Gideon?
Well, it was just so cool. I mean, I don't know. I almost felt it happening when, because you could hear her voice change. It no longer sounded like it was coming out of a speaker system. All of a sudden it was there. It was organic. And I was actually surprised Jax didn't recognize her right away. I guess just a visual representation of her just was not expected at all. So he didn't pick up on her right away until she's like, yeah, you should kind of know me. We're pretty close.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, because I love the way they did this scene, because you hear him come into the room and she's speaking to him, but she still sounds a little bit more computerized. And then as he gets closer to her, and then they cut and you see her standing there, and then she sounds more like a person, like, because you can see her actually standing there. That was very cool to me. Yeah. I love that editing.
And I like jumped off the couch because I as soon as I saw her, I know what the actress looks like. I'm Gideon. Yeah.
I know.
They did it. They gave her a body. Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was just, again, like I said in the beginning, it was just so cool that they did that, even for the actress herself, because she is pretty much part of this crew and a very integral part to the show. So it was very cool that she got to actually be in it, and we all get to see her and see the actress that's playing the part. It was so cool.
It was very cool. I need them to find a way to permanently make her human.
Exactly. Well, it's as I've said all season long, or the last 2 seasons, they do what they did in Andromeda, and she built her an android body that she can download all her programming to, and then she could be part of the crew. That's all you got to do.
That would be so awesome.
So we go from that very cool scene to something that kind of really took me back a little bit. When Rip's getting a little bit upset with Sarah, he basically force pushes her up against the wall.
I know. That was cool. Well, I mean, he's inside his own head, right? So kind of how I took this was that he's, kind of using the force or telekinetic powers. I mean, it's inside his mind, so he's the one in control. So I liked this touch. I liked that they showed that when he made a decision to do something like, don't touch me, there was a physical repercussion, because it's his head. That makes sense, right? And they did it more subtly when they were, Sarah and Jax were trying to basically defeat their doppelgangers, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they defeated them twice, and they just keep reappearing because Rip is the one who ultimately has to destroy them or force them out of the ship, with his powers, quote unquote, you know what I mean? Because it's his head. He has to be like, I don't accept this as reality. You're not real, and, banish them from the ship. So that was cool. I liked that it was a physical representation of it.
I guess I can buy that. I just found it a little bit odd. It was almost like a plot device to me, as a way for them to get out of the situation that they're stuck in, because I don't know if they would have been able to without that ability of his. It was just weird. It was just an odd placement, and even watching it twice, I was like, I don't know. It's just weird. Because Rip is not. Maybe he's just jealous of everybody having superpowers, so in his mind, he has powers because that's what he always wished he'd have. I don't know, but yeah, that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I just liked it because it showed him taking control more than him acting as if he's taking control. There was like a physical counterpart to it. So that's what did it for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, he uses his newfound powers to defeat pretty much everybody else, because this is what leads us to the big scene where he has to remember what's real, recognize that which Jax and Sarah are the real Jax and Sarah, and then defeat the other 4 people.
Mm-hmm. Which he basically just obliterates from his mind, because he kind of throws them against the wall, but they phase out.
Yeah, as soon as he kind of pushes them away, they basically completely fade away and fade out.
Yeah.
So he's breaking down the construct that was imprisoning him. So that's pretty cool.
Right.
Until the very end.
Oh, and this, yeah, I mean, since we're in this whole sequence of events, we'll talk about this ending, because to me, this was just it was the most dramatic and emotional part of the episode, is once he gets everyone off the ship and realizes that they got to wake him up, get him out of his own head, because Jax uses the wristband to shock himself awake, and they kind of, they put the, the paddles to Sarah to jolt her back. Mm-hmm. So Rip's left in his head by himself with Gideon, and they just have this amazing moment. And I don't know, there was a couple people on our Facebook page, and they're like, that kind of felt weird or gross or icky to me or whatever. And for me, I didn't find that at all. I see it as Rip and Gideon have been partners. They've been a duo. They've been basically tied at the hip since the moment he became a time master and took over the ship. And the amount that they have gone through together, and the fact that Gideon is borderline sentient, and we're still waiting to decide if she fully is or isn't. I mean, you could just see that there's a bond, there's a connection there with what they've gone through together. And the fact that she suddenly has a physical being, a physical form of herself that they can act on these, these feelings, then I just loved it. It was such a touching moment. And
it was.
Yeah. Because even just the way, Gideon, she's like, I'll always be here and stuff. It's just like, aw.
I know. I actually liked that kiss.
Yeah. And I think too, because it's in Rip's head, I mean, maybe in his own mind, in reality, Gideon is the next best thing after he lost his wife. Gideon is what he's attached to and connected to. And maybe in his mind, he always wishes that she was real. So when he's locked away in his mind, he makes his wish come true. There she is. She's real. So.
Yeah, I thought that was touching, that she was his protector and kind of lifeline left to get back to his old self.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was cool that she was able to kind of jack herself into the scenario, because she remembers everything, which that is what took me aback. I was totally on board with the whole thing, because I was like, oh, it's on his head. Oh, that's so sweet. And then she remembered, and I was like, oh, she was like actually in his head, not like that wasn't his memory of her. That was her. Yeah,
so I'm guessing through the equipment in the medical room, somehow she was able to get in there with them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, cool. So she maybe got in his head and realized this is what he was hoping for, and so she just took on that avatar, I guess. It was just nice. It was a cool moment. The music, the cinematography, it was just so well done, and it was a good emotional punch to the gut for sure.
Oh yeah, and especially once he was back out and kind of dressed back in his usual garb, and he was like, Gideon, I'm sorry for everything I put you through. And she was like, what do you mean? Do you mean this, or do you mean the kiss? And he's like, oh
yeah, he didn't expect her to remember either.
Exactly. So that was fascinating to me.
Cool. Well, we had 2 more little scenes before we get to the end. There was just kind of a funny little one with Dr. Stein and Mick. Kind of funny, but kind of serious.
Kind of morbid. A little bit.
You think so? Why morbid?
Well, maybe not morbid. Maybe that's not the right word. But Rory's basically saying, dude, you're kind of old, and you're probably, not long for this world. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. Don't say that.
That's Mick being blunt, but
I know.
That's his way of slapping Stein awake, basically. Like, you got to stop treating Jax like a kid. He's your partner, and you need him, and he needs you. It's just a cool scene, because coming from Mick, he knows a thing or two about partners and what that means.
He does, and as Dr. Stein points out, your partner's dead.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
Like, ooh, it was a rough exchange on both parties, but I think it needed to be said.
That is true.
Yeah. But,
well,
all right.
They wake Rip up, and, he goes back to his quarters, and he's kind of getting dressed in his own old clothes, and there's a bit of an exchange with him and Sarah, and this brings us to a question, because who's going to be captain now? Because, he just naturally falls right back into it, but she's feeling like the captain, and then she kind of
is.
Yeah, she kind of is, but then she kind of hands it back over to him.
She?
Yeah, based on what she said. The word she used, and I can't remember for word what it was, but when they both said whatever to Gideon at the same time, then she kind of smiles. She goes, nods and kind of gives it to him, and she called him the captain, and then she walked away. I'll meet you on the bridge, kind of thing. So I felt like she was handing it back to him.
Maybe. I don't know. I was a little bit confused by this scene and the final scene on the Waverider, because it still feels like she's assuming command, and Stein addresses him as Mr. Hunter. Well, he starts with Captain, and then he says, Captain, I mean Mr. Hunter. Right. I was like,
Well,
so I don't know.
I don't know sure of. We all like Sarah as captain and think she's done a far better job. So I'm not sure about Rip taking it over again, but part of me thinks that he knows the ship better and he knows Gideon, and there's that connection between the two, and that he might be able to lead as the ship's captain better. But I don't know. I'm still out on him. I'll have to see what they do with him over the next couple episodes, because I was enjoying his evil streak. I
think everybody was.
Yeah, and I don't want the wimpy, indecisive Rip to come back. So if he toughens up and he makes the hard decisions and leads the team with some confidence and some toughness, then I might be a little more open to it. So I'm gonna have to wait to see what they do with him.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with him as well. The way that everything was shot and the way that they did it, I thought that it was really well done. I actually did think it was nice to see him back as Rip Hunter, the captain of the Waverider, or the parent captain of the Waverider, since we're not really sure. The editing, the way that it was shot, it was the way that it was acted. Even I thought it was very well done. So it kind of was nice to see the old Rip Hunter back.
Yeah, well, and then the last scene too, when he went and spoke to each member of the team too.
I loved this.
Yeah, it was just nice. I mean, he kind of came in hanging his head a little bit. I think in a bit of shame he was feeling, because he knows what he caused them, when he knows what he's done to them. But I like how they were willing to take him back. I mean, it's been their mission to save him. So it was a really nice scene that they all were like, we're glad you're back, because we wanted to save you, the Rip who got us started on this whole thing.
Yeah.
So it was still a pretty touching moment that they're a little bit uneasy, but still kind of having their arms open for him.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really emotional. It was well done. And then just before things get too serious, you have Mick interject, I liked you better when you were killing people.
Yeah.
Like, all right, can't let it get too mushy and emotional in here. But no. I like that he remembers everything, and I like that he's remorseful and he feels bad.
That's the word for it, remorseful. Exactly.
That was a good touch. Wise decision.
Yeah. And that takes us to the very last scene where suddenly we're back in the 70s about to take off on one of the moon missions.
Yeah, it's Apollo 13. It's one of the more famous ones.
And I was expecting to see, Commander Steele here, and he wasn't even there. Yeah. He was just Reverse Flash.
It was Reverse Flash and a very famous astronaut, might I add.
Yeah, what was the astronaut's name again?
So the astronaut is Jack, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Swigert or Swigert?
Oh, Swigert.
Swigert, yes.
Okay. I don't know Swigert, what his history is.
He is apparently the first one that said, Houston, we've had a problem.
Oh.
And then it was repeated over the system from the actual commander who had to relay it down to actual Houston.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, I looked him up a little bit on Wikipedia because I don't know as like an extensive history of Apollo 13. I mean, I've seen the movie and I know like the general history of the space program and everything, but so I looked up a few things. And yeah, that was one of the fun little tidbits in here, so that was pretty cool.
Okay, so but what does this mean? This final sequence, does that mean the piece of the spear is on the moon? Why is Reverse Flash in there being like the doctor to the astronauts? Because I mean,
right?
If the piece of the spear is on the moon, what about Nate's grandfather? I mean, it was such a big question mark to leave us on. Which of course, I love it because it makes us wanting more. But I don't know what we're supposed to take from that.
I don't know either because I was expecting to see Commander Steele sitting there, and it clearly wasn't. I mean, you see the little name tag, it's Jack Swigert, but I don't know what that means for Commander Steele or what that means for the space mission, because where is the spear? Why there's so many questions. That was a great cliffhanger because now I can't wait for next week because I need to know how they're going to accomplish this.
Yeah, there was no hint or inclination at all as to where a piece of the spear might be hiding, so they really left us hanging on that one.
They sure did.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting if it was on the moon somehow, if it had somehow made it to the moon. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm
but
not sure.
There has to be a connection. Maybe Commander Steele is doing something with the space program now. Maybe he is one of the other astronauts. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Ooh, maybe he ends up being the commander of Apollo 13 instead of the man who actually was the commander.
I
don't know if he could because he doesn't
Flash
have
did something to him there, being his doctor. Maybe he did something, and Swigert's going to get sick and can't go on the mission. I don't know. Hard to say.
That'd be interesting because he was originally a replacement for an astronaut who got sick. That's how he ended up going on the mission. So that'd be interesting if they did that and had Commander Steele replace him.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, he was originally the backup crew, which is kind of fascinating.
Well, there you go. Interesting. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode, pretty much. Let's get into some of our featured sections, like Nitpick of the Week.
Form of water!
All right, what you got for us this week? I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, didn't we, already?
Yeah, we did. So my nitpick, which I've already talked about at length, was the beginning. It felt cheesy. It was TV convenience, but I get it. I mean, they needed to crash. They needed to be stranded, so you got to lose a piece of the ship, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. And then we talked about the opening scene too. So
right. So that was pretty much it then.
Yeah, it was pretty much the whole beginning.
Okay. I don't feel the same as yours, so I'm not going to... Yeah,
I
already
fine.
countered you during the thing. I was too much on the edge of my seat with it, and I didn't care. It was awesome.
It definitely had its high moments as well. I agree.
Cool.
All right. What about you?
Mine, I'm going to take it back to that scene, Sarah versus Sarah. Because, oh my God, it was the absolute worst alignment of split screen I have ever seen. You could totally tell, without even looking too hard, that they weren't even looking at each other. They're supposed to be facing each other directly, face to face, and they were not even looking at each other at all. It looked so fake. And Patty was actually the first one. She's, oh my God, she's not even looking at her. I'm like, whoa, she isn't. You're right. It was awful.
I totally didn't exactly catch that.
Go back and watch it, and you'll see, especially the dark version of her. She's looking off over Sarah's shoulder somewhere. You could tell she's not looking at her at all. They're not looking eye to eye. It was bad. And then there was something too, like the evil Sarah. She looked a little bit bigger too. They had I don't know, thickened her up or something. Her head just looked a lot bigger. It was just weird. So up until the fighting started, I just thought that was awful. You guys really dropped the ball on that little split screen thing there.
I can't really counter it because I didn't really notice it. So I'm not saying it's not there. I didn't actually pick up on that. But that's kind of funny. I'm kind of want to go watch again.
Yeah, go watch that, just that one bit, and you'll see what I mean. Look at Evil Sarah and look at where she's looking. It's bad. Okay. All right, well, let's move on to Quote of the Week.
Shape out an eagle!
Cool.
Oh, you did. I'm waiting for the yay, and you didn't do it.
I didn't. I know. Sorry. I was...
Oh, that long pause and no reward. Jeez.
Oh, sorry. I'll do it now. Yay!
Delayed. All right. So, What was our winner for Funny Quote of the Week last week? Or 2 weeks ago, I guess.
2 weeks ago, our winner was Trademark Issues.
I couldn't resist. It's like a saber made of light. Yeah. Just don't call it a lightsaber. Major trademark issues, right? Yeah.
Still fun.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, you said you had trouble picking 4 apart. So what did you come up with for our first one this week?
The first one is called Shaky Landing.
Gideon, are you back?
Yeah, you still trying to kill us?
I am really quite sorry about that.
How many times must I tell you people Mick Rory is not to pilot this ship?
It wasn't Mick. It was Gideon. I did apologize.
Yes. That was definitely funny.
I know. I just love that he comes out and he's so mad and he's like, he can't pilot the ship. It's like, oh, dear. I didn't realize this was that big of an issue.
All right. What's number 2?
Still the same.
If that's right,
Then there's more than just Bizarro me on this ship.
like Evil Ray, Evil Stein,
Evil Mick? I guess that's just regular Mick, but still.
But still.
I like how she said Bizarro versions of them, hence the Bizarro, Superman's twin. That was kind of funny.
Yeah, I love that. That was cool.
Number 3 is...
Egg on your face.
Raymond, what aren't you telling us?
Well, it just so happens that lady dinosaurs are rather maternal. And I may have eaten one of her eggs.
Aw.
But I was starving. I needed protein.
Sorry, I couldn't help it. I started laughing before it was done. That one was kind of funny, too. I just love the way that he says it. He's like, well, apparently lady dinosaurs are maternal.
Apparently. All right, and our last one for this week is...
Honest Sentiment.
I liked you better when you were killing people.
I see that not everything has changed in my absence.
You gotta have that. You gotta have Mick. You gotta get a quote in.
There's not a week goes by without a Mick one, exactly. Cool.
Well, shall we get on to our scene of the week?
We sure should. And our winner from last week was Dreams in Peril.
What are they doing? These guys don't stand a chance out there. Is this really worth the risk for some dream? Yes, because a long time ago, that dream meant the world to a little boy. And he still remembers. This isn't gonna end well.
Cool. Yeah, there's some good scenes last week, so.
Yeah, Ray won both. I just realized that. He got our funny quote and our serious.
Well, way to go, Ray.
Yay, Brandon Routh.
Yeah.
All right, what is our first scene?
The first one I called File Not Found.
Edward Thorne twisted his consciousness, turned friends into foes.
But you're still a friend. Why aren't you corrupted?
It did not occur to Mr. Thorne that the AI inside the Waverider needed corrupting. But time is running out, and Captain Hunter's true memories dim with every passing minute. Soon they'll be lost forever.
And there it is right there. She does say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. Oh, good. I'm glad you picked that. Was such a good one. I'm really glad you picked that one. It was so good.
I have to have some Gideon in there for sure.
Oh my gosh, I know. And she was really present in this episode. It was awesome.
Very awesome.
All right, what is number 2?
Number 2, I almost feel like singing this one. Special Woman.
Look, eventually, Amaya has to go back to her home in Zambeze in 1942. And she'll have a daughter. And eventually, a granddaughter who will inherit Amaya's totem, and she will become a superhero in Detroit. If you change Amaya's destiny, that threatens Mari's existence and the existences of all the people that she saved. Amaya isn't like the rest of us. We were recruited because we didn't matter to the timeline, but Amaya does. She's special. She has a destiny, and so do her descendants.
Yeah.
It was a great scene.
Yeah. Like I said, it really, really gave some depth to Vixen, which was cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And number 3?
A partner's worth.
Perhaps you've chosen the wrong analogy. Your partner is dead.
Well, I'm still on the ship.
Your point?
You're not exactly a spring chicken, Professor.
Your point!
My point is you're not going to be around for too much longer. And Jax has to learn how to do this stuff himself. Stop treating him like a kid and more like a partner.
That was actually pretty intense.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like,
hear it again. Yeah.
Yeah. He was, I mean, they were at each other's throats.
Yeah, very much so. Whew.
All right, well, what do you have to close this out?
Closing it out with Sentient Attraction.
All of these days, in this prison, you were what saw me through. Just as you have guided me to safety through all our years on the ship.
That is my purpose, Captain.
Yeah, but if this place isn't real, then does that mean that you don't exist either?
Not in this form, no. But unless you let me go, you won't exist either. Not in any way that matters.
No. I can't leave you, Gideon.
No, Captain. You can't. I will always be here.
Okay, I just got a little watery-eyed again.
Yeah, me too. That one still brings a tear to my eye, and I'm not even watching it.
Good stuff. Yeah, wait a sec. Did Harley Quinn just admit to feeling emotion?
No, absolutely not. I definitely didn't cry at all when I watched this episode.
Too funny. Maybe your alter ego, Jess, is kind of shining through a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes she takes over.
Sometimes. All right, well, Harley will put up the poll, and you guys can get voting on that. Let's get to some feedback.
Feedback.
Holy Twin Powers, activate!
Feedback.
Feedback. I sang again.
You sang again, just because it's fun. All right, well, we got 3 feedbacks this week. We're going to kick it off with a voicemail from our friend X-Force11, Jeff.
Hello, legendaries. This is X-Force11, Jeff calling in from Gotham City. Man, I enjoyed this episode. It was really cool to see the real version of Gideon for a change. That's very cool. Maybe we can down the road get a AI version of her that is visible. Maybe a hologram, a solid light hologram. Who knows? That may be an interesting love triangle there. But anyway, I enjoyed the episode, but it really left me asking some questions. I've really gotten used to Captain Lance, and I don't want to see that go away. So I'm hoping that she gets to stay captain, and maybe Rip's just an advisor, a number 2 for her. Maybe, we'll see. And it looks like we're going to the moon next episode. Interesting. A Justice League, Justice Society base on the moon? That sounds very familiar. I wonder where that's from. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing where the series goes next. Thanks. Talk to you next time.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm glad that you are in love with the idea of a real Gideon like we are.
Yes. That would be so awesome.
So cool. But he is right, though. The question of captaincy, what's going to happen there? We were talking about that. So that's a wait and see. They really didn't leave us with much. So hard to see.
I know. So we'll find out, I guess.
I think his last thing that he's referring to, Justice Society on the moon, I wonder if he's referring to the cartoons when the Justice League had a space station base, which was the Watchtower that, was in orbit around Earth. That's maybe where he's pulling that from, I think.
Maybe. But well, that'd be cool. That'd be a nice tie-in. Yeah, and it kind of answers our question.
Possibly, if that's where they're going. But yeah, I mean, there's all the stuff about Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all that kind of stuff. Who knows? Who knows where they're going? But I like his idea, if that's a possibility.
Yeah. Me too.
All right. Next, we got an email from ArcPhase. You want to read that one?
Yes. Okay. Greetings, Wonder Twins. I think this episode would have been better if it had more dinosaurs. Gertrude was cool, but with the title of Land of the Lost, I was definitely expecting to see more than one dinosaur, especially in the Cretaceous period. Nonetheless, it was still a pretty cool episode getting to see the inside of Rip's corrupted mind and the evil versions of our legend subduing Rip mentally.
Yeah, exactly.
A question about the red button, though, was how is it supposed to help wake them up? The red button is a physical object, and inside Rip's mind, it wouldn't really work anymore. Perhaps it's more like a kick in like an Inception. And also, when Jax got back out, why couldn't he wake Sarah up with the button she had on her wrist, the real one, not the imaginary one, instead of using the paddles?
Well, all I know is that the wrist thing, it supplied an electric jolt, which woke them up. So that answers the first part of your question. But the second one, why she couldn't use the one that's on Sarah's arm in reality, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't be able to use it, because I guess in theory it would still shock her and should bring her out, because just because it was destroyed in the thing, it should should still work in the real life and kind of have the same effect. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something to do with symbolism, I think, because obviously when you're in Rip's head, you physically don't feel anything, but because you're in his mind, it just symbolizes, if I push this button, I'll get shocked and wake up. So maybe because in the mind, she lost the wristband, she no longer can connect to that symbol.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. That's, I think, kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
All right, so he continues, a manifestation of Gideon. A human manifestation of Gideon. Who would have thought she would look so great being in human form for the first time?
Does Denny have a crush?
Maybe. I hope we get to see her in that form again. However, she didn't seem to have done too much despite having manifested in Rip's mind to help Sarah and Jax. True. I can't remember if it's true or not, but I think this may be the first time that anyone has acknowledged the existence of Mari as Vixen and her relation to Amaya. Any comments on that?
I think that was the first time.
I think so too.
Because Ray is the only one that would know about that out of everybody on her team.
Exactly.
So, yeah. No, that's cool. I believe you're right. That is the first time.
Yeah, and I liked that they brought it in and connected that. So, all right. Next week's episode looks like it will be continuing on the search for the final fragment of the spear. One question, though, is why doesn't Nate have any idea of where his grandfather is in time? I thought he mentioned hearing stories of his grandfather way back in the first couple episodes.
Probably because those stories you heard were everything to do with before the last mission with Rip. After that mission, they all got scattered, so that's why he has no idea where he is.
Yeah, because they were all presumed dead.
Yep.
At that point.
Yep.
Okay. Based on the appearance of Thawne in the end, it would seem that Rip and Dark went to find Stargirl and Merlin, and Thawne went to find Commander Steel. Thus, why didn't we see them in Camelot 3000 last episode? Another question arises, though, is how were they able to split up in time like that when they have only one time sphere? Do they have another time sphere, or is Thawne somehow able to bring others with him through time?
He's really grilling us for our science here. I'm guessing that Thawne, if he wants to break them up, he'll just plop someone in a time period, leave them there, and then take the sphere to a different time period and grab someone else and move them around. Because, I mean, he's Reverse Flash. He can come and go as he wants, as fast as he wants. So he's probably just going back and forth one at a time.
Yeah, and he doesn't need the time sphere. It's just that everybody else does.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so he closes out, our Captain Rip Hunter of the Waverider has finally returned. However, I miss the evil Rip as well as Sarah in the captain's chair. Perhaps Rip will continue to let Sarah lead the team for the rest of the season. From Arcphase.
I think
we
that's
shall see.
The feeling of most people, so again, we're just going to have to wait to see.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Arcphase. Next, our last one is a voicemail from our friend the Green Butterfly. Here she is.
Hi, this is your Eye in the Sky Green Butterfly. This episode was pretty spectacular. I mean, we had doubles of all of our favorite characters. We had the opportunity to use the word shenanigans in a sentence. And dinosaurs! Oh my god, dinosaurs. Why didn't I get to go to Jurassic Park? I think it was perfect that they chose Sarah to go with Jax inside of Rip's mind and try to save him from the reprogramming. Not only because she's the captain, but also because she knows what it feels like to be truly lost. Being inside of Rip's mind reminded me of when we had to bring Constantine in on Arrow to try to save Sarah's soul after the Lazarus pit. If I remember correctly, it was a dreamscape situation like this one. And after her soul was restored, but she was still crippled by bloodlust, Rip still took a chance on her and gave her a purpose to focus on that helped her recover. So it seems only fitting that she would also help Rip recover himself. So I know there's been some complaining about relationships on these superhero shows. And I'm a shipper by nature, and I love love. So I really do see your points, and I think that they are valid. but love stories in my superhero shows don't really bother me all that much. Plus, I've been watching CW for years, so I'm really immune to the love triangles and everything that happens on this channel. However, I am really grateful that the writers chose to give Ray the voice of reason in this episode and have Ray explain to Nate why his shenanigans could have some really serious consequences if he continues his relationship with Amaya. Because Amaya has her own destiny, and we must protect the destiny of her granddaughter, too, who will go on to protect Detroit with the animal totem. So I'm glad the writer saw fit to include this in the story this week to remind us of these facts. But Nate said he's going to start doing the right thing tomorrow at the end of the episode, which makes me wonder if we will soon have another time aberration on our hands. This episode gets 10 out of 10. 2 captains are better than 1. Have a super week. Green Butterfly out.
Well, thank you, Green Butterfly. You know, I guess she has a point. This is the CW.
I know.
We can complain as much as we want about the romance, but it's CW. That's what they're going to do.
I know, and I'm okay with a little bit of romance, but where it gets heavy-handed to me is when they're putting everyone in romance situations.
Oh, trust me, Supergirl is the worst with it right now. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not watching it.
Yeah. But anyway, no, good points as always, Green Butterfly. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
If you would like to be part of the show, you can send in feedback to tomorrowslegends@gmail.com, spelled with 1 R. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends, also with 1 R. Join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
Yes, please do. And actually, on that point, I mean, we've had quite a few new members joining our Facebook page, so we'd love to hear from some of our new people. I mean, we totally love all of our veterans and our regular feedbackers, but there's a lot of you out there now, a lot of new downloads. We'd like to hear from some of the new voices that are out there. So please get in touch with us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Get some new voices out here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that brings us to our 2 new... Well, I guess this week we only have flashpoints to talk about because there was no Arrow this week.
No Arrow.
All right, let's dive into a bit of Flash for a moment.
My name is Barry Allen, and I am the fastest man alive.
All right, what'd you think this week? Harley, give me a quick 2-cent version of what you thought.
Well, I really like this episode, although I got not frustrated in a why are they doing this sort of thing, but in a situational way, because you knew exactly what Savitar was doing with Wally, especially after a certain point. You're like, oh my gosh, he's playing into exactly what he wants him to do, and he's just goading him until he does everything that he needs him to do. And it was like frustrating, but in a good way. I was like, no. But okay. So I've got a theory, and I want to hear what you think about it. So to me, a lot of the things that Savitar was saying sounded an awful lot like the Reverse Flash, and that was when Julian was channeling him. Just the way that he said things that he said to Barry, it was almost exactly the same way that Thawne has said things to Barry in the past as well. So I kind of was wondering, since we know the version of Thawne on Legends is a time remnant of Thawne, could the Reverse Flash be Savitar?
Well, I don't know, because I'm thinking something else. I'm thinking it's Eddie Thawne.
Ooh, cool.
I mean, the rumors are that he's supposed to make an appearance on the show again. Well, what
that's
else?
True.
I'm just kind of connecting to everything that Savitar's been saying, that he had to give up his whole life and love to, like Eddie Thawne had to give up his whole life and love to save everybody. And then he gets sucked into the Speed Force, which is a place worse than death. I don't know. It just seems to me like that could be the one chance. And of course, it's messed him up and he's screwed up in the head. And he seems to know an awful lot about Flash and everything. So yeah, it could be Thawne, like reverse Flash Thawne, Eobard Thawne in there, but I don't know if that would be a surprising reveal or anything if they would bring him back again and have a couple different Thawnes running around. I think that might make things a little too messy.
Yeah, maybe. But do you really think Eddie would kill Iris?
Well, I don't know. If he feels betrayed by her, maybe. Because who knows what the Speed Force did to his mind. He's pretty messed up, and he always knew that her and Barry had a thing for each other. So I don't know. Maybe we could be totally wrong. It could be nobody at all, either of these two. That's
true. It could be like a completely brand new person.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's obviously what this season is about, is who is Savitar and what's going on there. Which leads me into what I'm thinking. Like, first off, I think Tom Felton creeps out pretty darn good when he gets possessed by Savitar. He does a good job there. Yeah. But have two parts of Savitar's prophecy come true now? One will betray them. Was that Caitlin when she kept a piece of the stone? One will suffer a fate worse than death. Well, I think that's Wally, because he got sucked into the Speed Force. And one shall fall. That's the one we don't know yet. Who's that going to be? I'm thinking possibly Julian. That's why they've been writing him in a way to get us to like him so much. And I just have this funny feeling because he only gets a special guest credit still in the opening show credits. So whether that's that's enough when Savitar is claiming someone will die and it's only a guest star, I don't know if that's enough. So that's what I'm left with. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but okay. So here's this. This goes back to I guess Central. They didn't release the podcast yet, have they? I was like, I haven't listened to it, but then I realized.
Yeah, not this. Yeah.
So okay, Tony has this theory that the prophecy could be about one singular person. Technically, Wally betrayed them by taking the piece of the stone and returning it back to the Speed Force. I don't know that he knew he was betraying them, but technically he did. And he suffered the fate worse than death. So I don't know, and I don't know what the one shall fall could mean, unless maybe somehow Wally is Savitar.
Yikes.
Anyway.
That's a little bit too far for me to stretch.
It's a little convoluted, but just a thought that occurred to my crazy brain.
Well, I guess just like on our show, we're going to have to wait to find out. I'm glad it's not easy to figure out this time.
Me too. It's been a really good season. It's been a really heavy season. It's been hard, and up until now, it's been hard to really theorize about stuff.
It has been, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, that kind of wraps us up, I would say, for this week, Harley.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking we got 4 episodes left of Legends. Where the heck is Leonard Snart?
I don't know. If they wait till the finale to bring him in, I'm going to be mad.
Well, to me, it's strange because we know that he was signed to a contract to play on all 3 shows, and he hasn't shown up on any of them. So,
well, technically, he showed up on our show.
Yeah, but not as, our Snart. So I'm wondering, and I'm also curious, how is this season going to end? What's the cliffhanger this time?
That's a very good point, because I guess they definitely can do a cliffhanger, because we already know we have a season 3.
Yeah, so they could do a big one for sure.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we got a lot of waiting and wondering, but we only have 4 episodes left, so I'm guessing we're going to be hitting some big reveals soon enough.
Yeah, they're going to have to kind of escalate it pretty quick here, I think.
Totally.
I think next week is going to be that turning point where it just kind of starts going.
I think so. And it's going to probably be a wild finish, I'm guessing, just as how good this season's been. It's going to be fantastic. So
I'm excited.
Anyway, until then, this is The Flash, signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Find our podcast in iTunes. You can leave us a rating and review. We'd love that. As well, we can now be found in Google Play Music.